Arrow object details. The A-label program can automatically draw arrow objects. An arrow object can have either one or two arrow heads, and arrows can be made any size and have any length. An arrow object can be given a border line or not. Next to lines, arrow objects are the simplest kinds of objects used by the A-label program. To create a new default arrow object, all you need to do is select the Arrow Creation tool in the lower toolbar. The cursor will change to indicate an arrow object, and if you then left-click anywhere on the label, the program will start an arrow object at the point where you clicked. The arrow object will remain selected. Note that the newly created arrow object has two endpoints that appear as little black squares. You can change the length and direction of the arrow object by grabbing and dragging one of these endpoints in any direction. To change the arrow properties, you can right-click the arrow object and select the Properties menu item. The main property of an arrow is its fill color. If you don't want any interior color for the arrow, then you can uncheck the checkbox with the caption Fill with Color. Otherwise, you can click the Fill Color button to select the fill color. If you don't want your arrow to have what appears as a borderline, all you need to do is select the borderline color to be the same color as the fill color. By default, the borderline color is black. You can also set the thickness of the borderline. Its default value is 1/100th of an inch, and this should be adequate for most arrows. A thickness value of 1/1000th of an inch should make your arrow borderline very thin. You can set the thickness value to 0, and then the borderline will be drawn as only 1 pixel thick. When we don't want a borderline to show, we set the thickness to 0, but then we also change the borderline color to be the same color as the fill color. Related to the borderline is its line style. The borderline style can be solid or dashed or dotted. If you select the Advanced Style Properties button, you can further set the number of dashes or dots per inch, and you can determine the spacing between the dashes. The size of any arrow object is determined by setting the thickness of the tail. As an example, the default tail size is 0.1 inches, but if we double this, we can see the new arrow size. However, arrows can be made essentially any size. The most technical aspect of an arrow object is determining the angle that we call the indent angle. By default, the indent angle is 90 degrees. Note how for the current arrow object there is a right angle between the tail of the arrow and one edge of the arrowhead. Now we are going to change the indent angle to only 60 degrees. Note how the shape of the arrowhead is changed. The indent angle can be anywhere between 90 degrees maximum and 30 degrees minimum. Setting an appropriate indent angle can help give your arrowhead a slight emphasis. Sometimes when making arrows, you want the arrow to be perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. There are two checkboxes you can use to make these properties hold. These are not permanent properties of any arrow. Checking one of these checkboxes only means after you close the dialog, the program will make the proper adjustment to the arrow. The next time you open the Arrow Properties dialog, neither checkbox will be checked. The last significant property for an arrow is to choose the number of arrowheads. The default arrow shows only one arrowhead.